16% of Indonesians over the age of 25 that had attained at least tertiary degree, the lowest all of the member states of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. I know it's sad. 40 million of us got the chance to attain high position in the field easier. Let's just be optimistic. If it take 8 years in the 2016 to be doubled in size, let's assume that in 2030, the number will increase by 3 times. So there will be at least 120 million of them will attain tertiary degree, which means that more people will have better chances to become leader in each particular field to shape the better future. Some of them will master in painting. Many wanna become app developers. Some of them decide to become skilled teachers. Many also aspire to become successful influencers. But things that we know for sure, there will be at least 430,000 of the students want to work in the tourism industry. We know that there are not many, but they will contribute 15.6 billion US dollars from overall Indonesia's GDP. But how can we achieve that? For this can happen, we need your help. We want special measures to address the imbalance, like putting ethnic minority, marginalized community, especially women, at the forefront to better reflect the makeup classroom or promote diversity. As for instance, even if you are a girl, we believe that you can become the president. Even if you don't have the chance to attain the tertiary degree, we still want you to enjoy the learning environment as much as them who got the chances. Because we believe that learning can happen anywhere, at any time. Learning is diverse, it's organic. School is no longer a place where a teacher has to disseminate knowledge from the front of the class. Because we believe that the world is a university and everyone in it is a teacher. No matter who you want to aspire, we want to see an educational system that is evolving to meet your needs, wants, desires, and passions. This is in line with the global commitment to leaving no one behind, as set out in the Sustainable Development Goals that strongly encourage countries to focus on both achieving inclusive and quality education and gender equality that is reflected in SDG Goal 4 and SDG Goal 5. Equality in education, including gender equality, also has a multiplier effect impacting future opportunities and outcomes in relation to economic growth, good health, well-being, and poverty reduction. So here are our wishes for you and all the wonderful educators and students. Let's create appropriate learning environment for both girls and boys, for everyone, to help them achieve the future that they wish. Let's be amazing examples of educators and role models who are not afraid to try innovative and crazy teaching techniques to voice equality. Here is something interesting you might not know just yet, that Indonesia currently has one of the largest youth population in the world at 28% of its 260 millions. By 2030, this adolescent will reach their 30s, their peak half productive years. However, in 2016, there are just 16% of Indonesians over the age of 25 that had attained at least tertiary degree, the lowest all of the member states of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. I know it's sad, only 40 million of us got the chance to attain high position in the field easier. But let's just be optimistic. If it take 8 years in 2016 to be double in size, let's assume that in 2030, the number will increase by 3 times. So there will be at least 120 million of them will attain tertiary degree, which means that more people will have better chances to become leader in each particular field to shape the better future. Some of them will master in painting. Many wanna become app developers. Some of them decide become skilled teachers. Many also aspire to become successful influencers. But things that we know for sure, there will be at least 430,000 of the students want to work in the tourism industry. We know that there are not many, but they will contribute 15.6 billion US dollars from overall Indonesia's GDP. But how can we achieve that? For this can happen, we need your help. We want special measures to address the imbalance that's putting ethnic minority, marginalized community, especially women, at the forefront to better reflect the makeup classroom or promote diversity. As for instance, even if you are a girl, we believe that you can become the president. Even if you don't have the chance to attain the tertiary degree, we still want you to enjoy the learning environment as much as them who got the chances. Because we believe that learning can happen anywhere, at any time. Learning is diverse, it's organic. School is no longer a place where a teacher has to disseminate knowledge from the front of the class. Because we believe that the world is a university and everyone in it is a teacher. No matter who you want to aspire, we want to see an educational system that is evolving to meet your needs, wants, desires, and passions. This is in line with the global commitment to leaving no one behind, as set out in the Sustainable Development Goals that strongly encourage countries to focus on both achieving inclusive and quality education and gender equality that is reflected in SDG Goal 4 and SDG Goal 5. Equality in education, including gender equality, also has a multiplier effect impacting future opportunities and outcomes in relation to economic growth, good health, well-being, and poverty reduction. So here are our wishes for you and all the wonderful educators and students. Let's create appropriate learning environment for both girls and boys, for everyone, to help them achieve the future that they wish. Let's be amazing examples of educators and models who are not afraid to try innovative and crazy teaching techniques to voice equality.
Good morning and afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you to today's event with the title Empowering Women Through Tourism Strategies for Sustainable Development. My name is Nada Widya from Women Tourism Indonesia, and I'm honored to be your master of ceremony for today. Today, we're gathered here to discuss and explore the incredible potential of tourism, not just as a way to boost economies, but as a powerful tool to uplift and empower women. By focusing on women's roles in tourism, we are also focusing on sustainable development, community well-being, and gender equality. Today, we'll be hearing from experts and community, not only their lives, but also their families, communities, and our shared environment. The next one, I would like to read the rundown for today's event. First, there will be opening speech from Dr. Wiwi Susartami, and then after that, there will be talk show from our speakers, and I'm also thrilled to introduce our keynote speaker for today's event. First one, Dr. Prachi Thakur from School of Hospitality and Service Management, Sunway University, and then Joyatri Ray as a tourism professional and researcher, and then last one, Maud Masiyiwa as a climate-friendly travel chapter leader. After the talk show, there will be a Q&A session, and before the event closes, we will announce a lucky winner for the best question who will get a special gift. Last but not least, the event will be closed with a photo session with all our speakers and the participants. And the event will be with the closed photo session with all our speakers. Now, I would like to read the rules for this event. So, the operator, can you please display the rules on the screen? All right, so the first one, WTID Talk 13 participants are highly expected to behave politely during the event. The second one, participants' video cameras and microphones will be automatically turned off by the operator during the event. Video and microphone can only be used with operator control, host, and co-host according to the moderator's instructions. And then the third one, Q&A will be conducted throughout the event. And then for the next one, the format for submitting questions or suggestions is as follows, such as name, agency or organization, intended research person, and then question, or name, agency or organization suggestion. And then the fifth, access to the research person's material will be provided at the end of the event in the form of a Google Drive link. Last one, certificates are available and will be distributed via email according to the webinar participant attendance list. Okay, for the next one, we would like to say thank you for the supporting partner for this event, such as Feminist Event, Tourism, Travelism, and Webpart. Alright then, now I would like to invite Miss Monica as our moderator today to lead the talk show. So without further ado, please welcome Miss Monica. The time is yours.
Oh ini gimana mukaku nggak nampak kan?
Okay,
Mana?
thank you so much, Nada, for being here and inviting me here. And also, before we start the session, I would like to open this Women in Tourism Indonesia talk to invite Dr. Wiwi Susartami as our first lecturer that lead the class Tourism and Gender. So, Dr. Wiwi Susartami, are you here with us already?
Yes, I'm here, Monique. Thank you.
Okay, so the screen is yours, Dr. Wiwi.
Okay, thank you, Monique. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Wiwi Susatami from the Tourism Study Program, Faculty of Cultural Sciences, Universitas Gadjah Mada. It is an honor for me to open this forum on empowering women through tourism, strategies for sustainable development. We come together today as students, educators, industry experts, and advocates to examine how we can empower women through tourism and also consequently enhance the sustainable development of our sector. As we engage in this significant conversation, I wish to emphasize a vital component necessarily for realizing our collective vision, that is incorporating a gender perspective into tourism education in Indonesia. Globally, tourism holds significant potential to empower women, especially through economic opportunities, cultural exchange, and community engagement. In Indonesia, where tourism significantly contributes to our economy, there's a distinctive opportunity to leverage this industry as a means to promote gender equality and encourage sustainable development. However, in order to fully realize this potential, we require an educational foundation that cultivates gender-sensitive leaders capable of addressing the unique challenges and opportunities that women face in tourism. Incorporating a gender perspective into the curriculum of tourism higher education is essential. It prompts students to examine the distinct impacts of tourism on men and women, while providing them with necessary tools to foster inclusive environments that serve the interests of all societal members. We are pleased to share that the Tourism Study Program at the Faculty of Cultural Sciences, Universitas Gadjah Mada, has become the first and perhaps remains the only tourism higher education institution in Indonesia to include tourism and gender as a compulsory subject in its undergraduate curriculum. Through this curriculum, through this subject, tourism and gender, students gain insights into addressing issues such as gendered labor practices, the gender wage gap, and the frequently overlooked contribution of women in the tourism sector. It enlightens the students about the structural barriers that women encounter and foster solutions that can convert these challenges into avenues for empowerment. Furthermore, this approach is also in harmony with the Global Sustainable Development Goals, especially SDG Goal number 5, which aims for gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls, as well as SDG Goal number 8, which advocates for inclusive and sustainable economic growth, employment, and decent work for everyone. By equipping our students to lead with a gender perspective, we establish them not only as skilled professionals, but also as champions for equality and sustainability within their communities. Today's forum presents a remarkable opportunity to share insights, strategies, and experiences that can guide us in integrating this vital perspective into our tourism practices and educational institutions. I hope our discussion will inspire us to work collectively toward a tourism industry in Indonesia and also elsewhere that uplifts women, values their contributions, and offers them a fair and sustainable path forward. I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all of today's speakers for their gracious willingness to participate in this significant forum. Dr. Prachi Thakur, Ms. Joyatri Ray, and Ms. Maud Masiyiwa. I would also like to express my gratitude to Women in Tourism Indonesia and to all of our alumni who established their organization for their efforts in organizing this forum and for inviting our students to participate. Special thanks to Monica, who has been co-teaching in the Tourism and Gender class as a teaching practitioner for the last 3 years. And thank you all participants, and let us make today's discussion a significant step toward this vision. Okay, thank you, Monica. I just returned the time to you. Thank you.
Okay, Thank you so much, Dr. Mrs. Hartami, for being here with us today and opening the space with us. So, hello, everyone. Good afternoon from Indonesia. And welcome to our International WTID Talk on the 13th session of Empowering Women Through Tourism, Strategies for Sustainable Development. I'm Monica, your moderator for today. Thank you all for joining us and in these important discussions, because we have been exploring strategies to support and empower women in the tourism sectors and for sustainable growth from all amazing panels that will talk mostly about her expertises in gender mainstreaming, training, policy, and climate change in the tourism sector. So it's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker. So perhaps our Turley operator can share the screen now for our first speaker's bio. Okay, awesome. So I think it's almost visible for the screen. Yes. Okay. So our first speakers, I would like to invite Dr. Prachi Thakur. She is the diversity strategist of World Women Tourism and an academic at the School of Hospitality and Service Management, Sunway University, Malaysia. Apart from being a full-time academic and researcher, she is also a two-time TEDx speaker and diversity strategist working with the industry to design more inclusive spaces for stakeholders, moving beyond discussion of women's empowerment. Dr. Prachi Thakur argues for intervention that assists us in creating inclusive spaces for women by modifying structures. So, Dr. Prachi, are you here with us already?
Yes, I am here. Hi, Monica. Hi, team.
Hey. So yeah, it's such a powerhouse to have you here. I had the chance to meet you in Bali last May during the UN Tourism Conference, and I am truly excited you are able to join with us, because her recent TED Talk of you has been incredibly amazing, and I shared with the discussion with all the students that take gender and tourism classes. So we have around like 25 minutes to talk and discuss about these topics. So I'm so ready and excited to dig up more so about the things that we have discussed already earlier. Okay, so for your experiences and based on your specific research, what are some of the most pressing challenges women face in the tourism industry, particularly at the managerial level? So perhaps, yeah, you can share your opinions about this, Dr. Prachi.
Thank you so much for that question, and just a very warm hello to everyone. And a warm hello because it's raining in Kuala Lumpur, and so I'm tuning in from Kuala Lumpur, and it's raining and it's getting cold. So, warm hello. I hope you're doing well. And before I answer this question, I actually want to acknowledge that I'm not very sure how many of us are aware of the US elections and the results that have come in. But 1 second. Yeah. The results are not very good for women. So because US has a lot of influence on how policy changes happen across the globe, right? So if you are not aware about how US politics runs and influences the world, I would love for you to check it out. So someone has been elected as a US president who is really, really not good candidate for the presidency. What that means for women across the state, United States of America, and across the globe is that the discussions around how we need more discussions of women empowerment, investment in women's resources is just needs to double down on everything, right? So just taking a moment to acknowledge the things that have hit the fan. And then coming back to our discussion today about the challenges that women face at managerial level in tourism particularly, right? A lot of things happen traditionally that we know, but I think in my experience and my conversations, there are two things that are standing out, especially when we talk about women in leadership positions in Asia and the Pacific. The first is the problem of white feminism. And second is the challenge of misunderstanding activism. So let's get into both of these like bit by bit, right? So what is white feminism? So if you don't know the meaning of word feminism, feminism argues for equal rights of men and women. That's just the definition of feminism. Now, a lot of people, again, the what aboutry that goes in, oh, what about men though? Why is it called feminism? Why isn't it called equalism? Well, the word was coined when women had no rights in public spaces. So women needed more right to become equal of men. And we are talking about a mythical binary world, right? Where there are only men and women in the world. So in that mythical world, women needed more rights to come equal to men. That is why the word was coined as feminism. But that does not mean that there are any less rights for men and things like that. So if you have any confusions, we can have a separate discussion. We are not talking about that now. But the problem is, in Asia and Pacific, since the discussion about feminism started from white countries, when it came to Asia and Pacific, we forgot to look at our own culture, our own religion, the way we work as a society, and we started blindly following feminism and the way it argues for spaces for women in outdoors, as in outside the home. Okay, fine. And that gave rise to the problem of white feminism, where we don't take religion, socio-cultural expectations, and just the social structure in consideration. So we forget that we live in a totally different society. We forget that our social expectation, our social, the way our fabric runs is totally different from white countries, or more specifically, individualistic countries, because we are not individualistic countries, we are collectivist countries. And I understand that a lot of us here today are students, so I just want to draw out the difference between individualistic and social, collectivist societies. So in individualistic societies, the person is at the center of the society. What do I want? What do I want to do? What do I want to achieve? What do I need to be happy? That are the questions that individualistic society fuels. In comparison to the collectivist or social societies like we are, we take community at the center. Okay, what does our community need? How does our community run? What do we need for our community to flourish? So our thinking, the thought process, the way we earn money, the way we spend money, the way we save money, the way we think about money, the way we think about power, the way we think about authority, all of it is influenced by the society we grow up in, right? So bringing back this discussion to white feminism, we forgot somewhere that we are not in individualistic societies. So what happened that women with hijab, women who pray, women who don't wear pants and suits, women who don't expose their skin, women who don't talk loud, we started coining them as not enough feminists. Take this to the leadership discussion. So if, let's say, I don't wear hijab and I have short hair, but let's say if I ironically am wearing a pant right now, like trousers and blazers, right? But if I was a sari wearing person, I'm Indian, so sari is my cultural attire. Not everyone in India wears sari though. I'm from North, so that's my cultural dress. If I was wearing a sari, I had long hair, maybe bun, would I be seen equal feminist as someone who wears a pantsuit, has short hair, is relatively loud in speaking? In most cases, the answer is no. And through all the other structural challenges that we have, that, okay, yes, we need more time and space, we need more support in having equal responsibility inside and outside home. I have realized that this white feminism and the misunderstanding of white feminism does more damage to women in workplaces than otherwise. Because if I don't look a certain way, if I don't talk a certain way, I am not considered a good leader, or I am not considered an equal leader, or I am not considered to be capable of leading. None of which is true. Literally none of which is true. And these all questions, oh, she doesn't look the part. Oh, she is very soft spoken. She doesn't, but okay, yeah, but she doesn't. She wears a sari. She doesn't like how does her impact come in? All these questions, or any questions that come around the makeup, the hair, or my femininity, or that I don't look close to a white male or a white female, is damaging on how we look at leaders, how we see future women leaders in the industry, right? Then the second thing is the misunderstanding of activism. It's kind of related to white feminism, but it's a separate issue because we think activism is loud. We think activism is visible. We think activism has to be visible. It is good if it is visible. It is good if it is loud. It is good if people can notice you on your activism. But not every act of activism has to be loud. One time there is a meeting happening, someone cuts someone in mid-sentence and you call them out that, you know what, your idea is great, but let her complete her sentence. That is activism. And these are small acts that we all have the capacity to do. It's called microfeminism. If you are on Instagram, you must have come across this hashtag of microfeminism, which I think we are missing out a lot on, especially in Asia and the Pacific. Because we have more consequences of being overt activist. When we are loud, when we are more visible, when we put our arguments more on the table, loud and clear, we have more consequences. As a result of it, a lot of people just don't do anything. And then we keep losing out on who will be the next leader because we forgot about the small acts of feminism that we can do, small acts of activism that we can do with, like everyday interactions. When we call someone out, are we using their surname? I make it a point that everyone calls me Dr. Prachi. That, okay, fine. Unless I know you really well, I don't want you to calling me Prachi. No. Why? You would have met a man who had this title. You would be more likely to call them with the doctor title. Why not me? What told you about me that you can call me by my first name? Nothing. So unless I tell you that, you know what, it's fine, please call me Prachi, you have got no rights to call me Prachi. It's Dr. Prachi for you. Everyone, it is Dr. Prachi. Because we are more, in fact, there's a research that actually was conducted, and it was seen that the master of ceremonies, the MCs, they are more likely to call out men's full name and keep addressing them with their titles in comparison to women, even if women are more qualified on the same panel or same speaking opportunity. Isn't that very ironic? So these are the acts we can do without being overt and without being extremely visible, which I think can lead to a lot of more space to increase the discussion about leadership of women.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting to talk about the white feminism itself and how the equality itself is from the old perspective until the ones that keep like diminishing about the like how can it diminish the truly feminism that works in activism and something like that. And it's really good and it's mesmerizing to talk about. It's really, it gives me goosebumps when we talk about activism, when we know that activism sometimes it's romanticized by people that when they are attending the high-level events and they just sit on the table, something like that. But that I just want to say that yes, that's right. That keep and staying authentic with your voices and with it all as long as we did the research and your heart. It's also incredible, like the activism that you already mentioned. So, Dr. Prachi, so in your systemic review on diversity training, that's the things that you talk, your TEDx talk that I already shared with the students, and the recent work on the impact of diversity training on employees and consumer. What role do you see diversity training and education play in advancing women's empowerment within tourism? So, and also perhaps are there any gaps in current training programs that could be addressed to enhance women's participations on leadership, on in equal ones that is good for our society in the near future?
Thank you so much for that question. I really appreciate how you have brought my research into the discussion. I so much appreciate it. So the first question you have is what is the role of diversity training in increasing women's empowerment and women's visibility in tourism? I love this question because I think the limitation that we have right now, that a lot of women are restricted to low-paying jobs. I don't need to cite the number of research that has already talked about this. We have had people working back-to-back research and industry reports and everything coming in that is talking about the same problem, that women are not being paid enough. Women are restricted in roles that look like their domestic roles. Okay, you're cooking here, you cook there. You're taking care of things here, you're taking care of things there. Similar like that. I think diversity training can play two very important parts here. First is increase the understanding of other people, because if women are not in the middle management and senior management, who else is there? There are men, right? Because again, we live in a mythical world, it's only men and women. So here, if women are not there, it's men. It's men who is making decisions, men who are making decisions. We want those men to understand that they have the power in their hands and they can create more space for more women to come in. Is important for us to include more men in the discussion, that you know what? You have been holding this table for a really, really, really long time now. We need to bring more women in. Why? The largest consumer strata, again, you saw the TEDx talk, the largest consumer strata of travelers and travel making decisions is women. So women are making consumption decisions, but women are not making the selling decisions. Women are not making the product decisions. So the product that we are being sold by men, we are being marketed by men, we are seeing products designed by men, but the decision about all these products, all these things that we see is being made by women. Isn't that a huge mismatch that is happening? So we need to invest in diversity training by first is to increase the understanding that we do need more women. So I think the more we invest in diversity training, the more awareness there will be around why we need more women and how having more women can aid to everyone's journey totally, right? And second thing, I think we also need diversity training that tells women that you can do it. Very simple as that, because in Asia and the Pacific, the biggest problem that we have is women don't think they can do it. We think, oh my God, before anyone else puts me out of the race, let me pull myself out of the race. Why give pleasure to someone else? I'll kick myself out. Why? Oh, I don't think I'm qualified. Really? Have you tried? No, I don't think. Don't think. Don't think, do it. So I think we also need diversity training to just give a amp up, give boost to women's confidence that, you know what, try it. The maximum that you can do is fail, right? And Monica, you were there at the empowerment, conference in Bali. one of the things that I did emphasize hard on is women's right to fail. Because the
Yeah.
consequences of failure for women is very, very high.
Yeah.
We penalize women for failing way more than we can ever penalize men. And that is the biggest reason why women keep pulling themselves out of the race of becoming a leader. It is a race. I will not simplify it like that. So I do think that there is diversity training required to help men understand that there need to be more women around. And second, for women to understand that they can do it. They don't match 100% of the criteria does not mean they are automatically disqualified, right? The second question that you asked me is that, is there any gap in diversity training? Yes, there are a ton. I'll connect it to first so that we can move ahead with the discussion. The first is we focus too much on white feminism. We do not have enough resources. We do not pay enough attention to our own culture and society. For example, I'll give you an example. I'm in Malaysia right now, right? A large population of Malaysia, and in fact Indonesia as well, is Muslim. A lot of us wear hijabs. A lot of us are not comfortable showing our skin. Religious choices, even I am not very comfortable. You will mostly see me in very, very traditional clothing. Okay, fine. Does that make me less a feminist? No. Do people look at me differently? Yes. So the gap in diversity training here is we need to contextualize diversity training for our own culture. We cannot ask a person who wears hijab or a person who wears more covered clothes to ditch. No, you show your body, only then you are a feminist. You ditch your hijab, only then you can be a leader. You do this. No, you need to contextualize the training for your culture. There doesn't need to like a sweep off of every cultural thing. Culture is not bad. Culture was there for a reason. It just got extrapolated in some ways that was not good. We do need to negotiate that. But we definitely don't need to ditch our religion, ditch our cultural practices altogether. We need to design diversity training sessions that are in line with those expectations and in line with those traditions. Obviously, again, making a point here that we do need to negotiate some things that, okay, my religion demands this, my culture demands this, and it's unfair. Okay, I'm having a negotiation here, but we don't need to wipe it off. That's one reason why people don't connect with diversity training, because when we walk into a room, we give these audacious ideas. Our audience does not connect with it. They cannot work on it from, let's say there is a mother of three, a hijabi person or an Indian person who has always worn a sari. She's 45 and she's sitting in my diversity training. Tomorrow I tell them that, okay, you know what, stop wearing saris and you have to wear pantsuits and you have to stand up for your. Do you think they're going to connect with that diversity training? Never in the world that is happening. So I think that's the biggest gap that I can highlight, that, okay, we forget how to contextualize the diversity training for our own culture, our own discussion. So that's the biggest one, I would say.
Okay, that's really interesting again to talk about how to put more women in the table. And so because sometimes when women are already in the leadership position, they are often weaponized, like, oh, they are in the leadership position, so they must be so bossy and something like that. So I heard a lot for women out there that share the opinions about this and share about the glass ceilings about these kind of things. And sometimes we need to normalize, like you already have said, that women should have more time to learn and time in the equal discussion, so we can again normalize women in the leadership, and they can choose what they want, either they want to in the domestic area or in the public area, or public spaces that you already mentioned. And sometimes and I heard things about my 2 cents about this kind of things, that if we constantly weaponize women in the leadership position, it will create a sexism community that I already mentioned about the gender bias, and when women that in leadership position will be like called bossy and not assertive at all, and they should be at home and something like that. So yeah, so the gaps that you already mentioned is also, yeah, it's also great and so comprehensive that I already recall. So we need to contextualize and decolonize our mind in regards
Yes.
to, yeah, the white feminism itself, because we need to negotiate again about the cultures, and we need to be like a have like a kind of indigenous approach to have this kind of
Very,
diversity.
very true. Yes. The word is decolonize, and look
Nice,
at that.
yeah.
Yes, the word is decolonize. That, okay, we need to understand that our own culture
Mhm.
is not that bad. It's
Yeah.
not that bad as Western feminism says that, oh my God, Asia is,
Yeah.
my God, Asia is so problematic. Every
Yes.
tourism forum that you go on, everyone is like, is Indonesia safe to travel? Yes.
Yeah,
Rachel,
yeah.
yes, Indonesia is very safe to travel,
Yeah.
safer than half of the US states and most of Europe.
Yeah.
Coming to Asia, we are much better people than you think. It's at this point, I think it's borderline funny, honestly, the way Asia and the Pacific is looked at, as if our culture is the retard culture, that we oppress our women. Hello,
Mhm.
sister, have you looked at your own culture?
Mhm.
The way you have oppressed women? At least, see, if you look at history of all the, like countries in Asian Pacific, right?
Mhm.
The social structure obviously has, again, extrapolated some problems really, really terribly.
Mhm.
But if you look at it, we did have unique set of rights even when there was no education around, like the Western education. I'm typically talking about Western education. So we did have our own ways of doing things. There is this very good post, I'm not sure where I have read it, but that discussion of white feminism and Malaysian feminism, actually, I read, and I read it on LinkedIn. I really, really thought about it because I do see it every day now. People, in the religious clothing, again, I give a lot of examples of hijabi women now because I'm seeing a lot of them now. I'm seeing them being the feminist I didn't think existed.
Mhm.
But again, even in my mind, the idea of feminism was relatively different before I came to Malaysia. But when I came to Malaysia, I see a very different thing, which is learning curve for me, right? So I'm reading more about the decolonizing my own mind, first of all, and then sharing it with others. And it's very interesting to say the least.
Mhm. Okay, so yeah, I think like it will be like our last question for you, Dr. Prachi. So it is about because your recent work called for critical studies on empowering marginalized groups for inclusive tourism. So could you please elaborate on specific structural changes that would move the tourism industry beyond traditional empowerment towards truly inclusive spaces for women and marginalized communities, and of course, and how it's also aligned to the broader goals of gender equality as outlined in the sustainable goals number 5. So I hope it is not that much, so you can have like a have 2 cents about this kind of question.
Definitely. I again really appreciate that you have brought in my research in the discussion. I really love blending research and industry discussion. So your question about what structural changes do we need? So I'll just tell you one, which is my personal bias.
Mhm.
We need more investment in diversity training. That's one structural change that we can introduce. We can make it a part of structure because right now, we think investment in diversity training as a luxury, that, okay, big organizations can do it, or big organizations need to do it because they have more people, or we don't have the budget. The number of times I have heard this statement that we don't have the budget for diversity training is ridiculously large. Not good, right? So we need to treat the problem of lack of women in leadership roles as a crisis, because in Asia and the Pacific, especially stats from Asia and the Pacific, the number of women who have started traveling now is a large multiplication factor of how they were traveling 10 years ago. Right now, at the beginning of the session, I heard this audio that you were playing mentioning that Indonesia has a large youth population. In ideal world, even if it is like 50-50 population, that 50, again, mythical binary world, it's just men and women, 50% of your population are young women. Even if they are traveling domestically, they are leaving footprint all across the country. Now imagine the small operators, imagine the small businesses. We're not talking about large businesses with large revenue, large budgets. No. They are going to interact with small businesses, small service providers, and small hotels. If you don't invest in diversity training, the historical number of sexual harassment of women or poor treatment of women in our industry is going to continue increasing. So we need to make diversity training a part of the structure, because if not, this structure, the whole ecosystem, is really, really not going to thrive.
Yeah, that is right about the whole ecosystem that needs diversity training to strive, and it can be like one of the package of the policy that perhaps is still absent in our mostly society. So I couldn't agree more of that, because sometimes when I talk about these kind of things about the gender training, they always try to like again think that it is really, really a big movement. And sometimes when we talk about gender equality, it feels like only one side that needs to be addressed. It's about our work.
Women. Yes.
Yeah, but it's like if we try to like softly continue like internalize that kind of diversity training, so we can just include also men and women also can be a big part of these changes. So I couldn't be more agree with that kind of
Women don't work in vacuum, you know. Women do not work in vacuum. They don't create homes in vacuum. They don't interact with other people in vacuum, and they don't interact with only women. So if we have investment for women, which includes only women, are we doing something wrong? Isn't the whole idea of including women is to include everyone, including women?
Exactly.
If we keep isolating women for the gender diversity training or for XYZ training, XYZ movement or impact, we are losing the whole point. We won't have good lasting changes till we include everyone in the discussion for women. Because again, don't work in vacuum, really do not. So yeah, we do need to focus more on this.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Prachi, for that enriching discussions. I'm looking forward for the Q&A. So perhaps if you all the audiences have kind of questions, so please feel free to drop off the questions on the chat box. So it's always a pleasure to hear your insight, Dr. Prachi. So dear operator, can you please just move forward for the slides?
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Dr. Prachi. Okay, Ken. Okay, thank you so much, all of the audiences. Please stay tuned for the next speaker. It is my pleasure to welcome Joyatri Ray. Are you here with us already?
Yes, Monica, I'm here.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joyatri, for joining us. And I know that you are not feeling well right now, but I hope that it's okay to talk about a few more minutes with us. So yeah, I would like to introduce Joyatri Ray. She comes us through our network with equality in tourism and brings a wealth of experience in gender mainstreaming and child safeguarding at both national and global levels. She is an alumna of the prestigious International Visitors Leadership Program by the U.S. State Department. Previously, Joyatri served as the Director of Equitable Tourism Options, which is Equations, and the Head of Corporate Social Accountability at ING Bank in India. Her expertise includes public policy on gender issues with a focus on developing gender action plans, impact assessment, gender-sensitive budgeting, and policy evaluation. Joyatri, we really appreciate and so happy to have you joining us today. You can share your screen if you don't mind, and take about like a 25 minutes to your presentation. So the screen is yours, Joyatri.
Thank you. Thank you, Monica. And thank you, everybody, for being here. A great opportunity for us to, for me to share my thoughts on this important topic. I hope you are able to hear me and I am clear. I'm sorry that my voice is really bad today.
Yes, it's already audible.
You have to allow me to share your... Oh, okay, I got it. Can you see my screen?
Yes, it's still loading, but I think like 1 second after this, perhaps. Okay.
No?
No, not yet. Perhaps you can to
Can you see it now?
Yeah, still loading. Okay, yeah, good. So we can see your screen right now. Perfect.
Try to make it on the slideshow. If that happens. Okay. So what I will share with you all is a kind of a case study from India for over the period of a few years, past few years, and what has been happening in terms of empowering women through tourism in the context of India, primarily. To say that, before I start, I would like to kind of say you a bit of a statistics on what does India tourism look like at this point of time. You can see the statistics that it's actually increasing after the setback that we faced during the COVID-19 pandemic period. India is doing pretty well. There's a data from the Ministry of Tourism website. It talks about that the earnings are actually increased by 7% over the 2019 earning. So, and it is also reflecting 72% increase from that 2022. It has reached 25.11 billion USD, which is a huge amount in terms of foreign exchange earning for us. Domestic tourism, if you look at it, it remained the same as earlier, with a 1% marginal increase from the 2019 level. Solo traveling, I think something that Dr. Prachi Thakur has also touched upon in terms of how women are traveling and how women's agency as traveler, women agency as part of tourism participants in terms of entrepreneurs, travelers, artisans could be acknowledged. You see that portion is also quite impressively growing, and the GDP is supposed to be touching $500 billion in 2028. That's the size of our Indian tourism industry right now. So when we look at the industry, we also see that though there is a 54% women at the global level, and in the Indian where women are participating. When we look at India, Indian researchers say that we also have reached 54% in terms of women's participation. But the question lies on what level, what kind of environment, what are the benefits, and what are the actual positions that women are really occupying, or women are populating in this whole tourism business. To say that there are what we look at when we talk about women's participation or women's empowerment in terms of tourism sector, we're looking at women's access to income and assets, which means women economic empowerment is a focus. Trying and with that, looking at the benefits that the control and the benefit for economic gains, power to make decisions, and safe and enabling public spaces. I'll come to each of this to demystify why I'm saying these four components are critical to look at social, economic, and political transformation of women's leadership into tourism development, which actually implies formal sector as well as informal sector. India and the whole of South Asia and most of Asia as well, informal sector as predominantly dominates tourism business. What do I mean by that? I mean by what I mean is the organized sector, but the artisans, the street vendors, the local the local transporters, local shopkeepers. When I look at tourism, my understanding of tourism is that tourism experience is not only a hotel or a particular tourism destination. It's an entire environment and atmosphere and ecosystem of the place. When we get down when we deboard a flight, when we deplane, when we are coming out of the flight and we are taking the bus, how the bus attendants actually welcomed us matters a lot to us. So starting from that experience, when we enter a destination, each and every system, every mechanism become part of our tourism experience. And in those, every part of the experience, we need to see how women are integrated, how women are being part of it, and what are the enablers there, which is making sure that the women can come in and be there. In many of the cases, we see that women may enter a kind of a tourism business, but they also exit because of the enablers are not present. I will come to that a little later. Before that, I will talk about what is happening in terms of in terms of women's empowerment from a point of view of the positive result that's coming out of this initiative. What are the various strategies that we've adopted till now? We're looking at increase in the female labor force participation by training them on different employable skill sets. What do we mean by that? We're looking at, if you look at in India, guides, we have very few female guides, 2 to 3% is our female guides. So we are trying to see, can we increase female guides over there? Can they be part of it? Women can also be very good storytellers. They are good storytellers. They do connect with the heritage culture in a very different manner than a man, and than a man really relates to it. Both have their own advantages, and both should then be participating in this process of telling the story of our culture, of our heritage to the person who is coming to our country, or to our own people who are trying to get exposed to the history and the culture of our of their own countries as well. So how do we increase women labor? In terms of that, if you look at the gypsy drivers, what we mean by gypsy driver is the national parks. We have the gypsy drivers and the guides are primarily men. Hardly there is women. So as there is a boom in women solo travelers, we're also looking at avenues to make sure that women are coming into those kind of roles which were traditionally being managed by men only. So gypsy drivers, there are lots of schemes that's happening right now in terms of coming to Madhya Pradesh, Uttarakhand, from the central government. There are quite a few schemes which actually promoting skill development training for women to be part of these men-dominated sectors in tourism, which are primarily guides, gypsy drivers, local transporting, which is three-wheeler driving, car driving, and things like that. We're also looking at increasing women's average income by helping them to advance high-return occupations. This is something is important because the wage that men and the women gets is often low. So how do we bring in equality in wage for the same kind of work, same number of hours, and same occupation? trying to look at the labor laws, trying to figure out how can men and women work together for the same thing, same kind of occupation, they get the same wage. That's another way of integrating women in the tourism supply chain. Enabling ecosystem to retain women, primarily if you look at the government of India has laws where it says that, Monica, you are saying something?
I'm not saying something. It's okay. So
Okay.
yeah.
Sorry. Okay. So enable ecosystem, what we mean by that is divided into two parts. When we look at the formal sector, we're talking, the government of India has laws which says that every institution that employs women is supposed to have creche systems, supposed to have facilities for women to actually bring their babies if they need to be, to have other enablers. Are there enablers of that sort? Are those there? There are guiding principles. There are laws and acts which also talks about preventing sexual harassment at women's workplace. Are we following those rules and regulations or not that? So how do we make the space enabling for women, be they in a formal sector or in informal sector, to continue this work? We all know that tourism is not a 9-to-5 job. Tourism is a 24/7 job. So if we need to have women there, what kind of enabling policies are we bringing in? What kind of enabling services are we giving? What kind of facilities are we actually putting in place so that more and more women can actually enjoy their work and also perform the duty that is given to them by the nature? How do you look at that? In that whole process, we are also working with men and boys to look at shared responsibilities. How do we share responsibilities? How do we look at care economy? Can care economy also be monetized? Yeah. How do we look at, so we're trying to work on enabling ecosystems. One is the mechanisms and infrastructure facilities. Other one is shared responsibilities between men and women. Third is care economy being a big economy in India. Yeah. And to see that how can we look at care economy as a component which could be integrated with the tourism supply chain to see what best could be done. And the women's unpaid labor can actually become a paid labor and not an unpaid service. Promotion of education, self-defense is part of the training that we have for the women, and also looking at community initiatives and advocacy actions. Other very important part of our strategy is increasing visibility of women in public spaces. That means that there are hubs, or there are marketplaces that is getting designated for women vendors, women street vendors, women artisans, and women entrepreneurs, which could then be visibly there, so that the women are visible in the tourism markets, in the tourism supply chains. Now, when we look at what are the various processes that we follow, the process starts with mobilizing women and to identify the skill sets, matching skill sets with the available job opportunities. We try and look at, as much as possible, it's a locally available job options, so they don't have to migrate to another place, because migration also have other advantages as well as disadvantages. So we are trying to look at whether they can get jobs, dignified, equal paid jobs within their own known ecosystems. Small scale enterprise setup, service employed in the service chain, which I just spoke about, and looking at also training the women and girls to report any violence that's happening or any kind of harassment that's happening with, because we see that many women leave tourism businesses also because there are harassments, there are verbal harassments, there are sexual harassment, there are other kinds of gender-based violence that happens, and often they don't know what to do and where to go and report, and what kind of facilities are available for them to fight it out, or to kind of or in terms of reprisal. So we look at empowerment from both perspectives, One is a perspective of how they can economically gain from there, and that changes their social status, that changes their ability to take a decision, that changes their way they could actually take a decision how to spend the money that they earn, where to invest, how to save, what to do with that, their ability to negotiate with the managers, supervisors, and their own ecosystem, so that they can get a better pay, they can get a better they can get an enabling environment to retain in this sector. And also, we acknowledge that there are gender-based violence within this tourism sector as well, and how do we address that? Both ways. One way is to empower women to know where to report, how to report. Other thing is to work with the is to also to work with the tourism stakeholders, the guides, hotels, travel agencies, local transporters, to work with them to also to understand. We found that simple thing in our culture. It's very normal to say, "Hey, how are you?" We do tap and we
Yes.
say, "Hey, how are you?" Or we say, "Hey, such a lovely girl." It's very common thing in our culture. Well, sometimes some people may not like it. And because our culture says it is acceptable, we do this, and we don't know it is actually a harassment for somebody else. So often it may not be an intentional harassment. It may be just a cultural thing. We are not aware that this shouldn't be done with others. So when we talk to the guides, hotels, travel agencies, local transport, we also talk to them about what is a better way to behave, better thing to do within your boundaries of your role. Since you don't know the other culture so well, since you don't know what the other person's reaction should be, these are things you should not be doing. These are things you should be doing. So we at the same time, we also talk to the tourism service providers, basically men and boys in the tourism chain. We talk to them about what is an acceptable behavior within the tourism context, because you're meeting with different cultural people. You're meeting with women also maybe in the same culture. Maybe I'm an Indian and you're also an Indian, but my upbringing may be different than your upbringing. So I may accept something and you may not accept something. So respect that. So, again, going back to what Dr. Prachi Thakur was talking about, diversity, and how do we embrace that diversity? How do we embrace that kind of an understanding that there are culture and there are different cultures, and within culture there are different understanding. It's a very important part of our work, because we feel that empowerment of women and engaging them into tourism, it means not only skilling them in job roles, but it also skilling them to understand the tourism context. What is tourism? Who is coming? Who is going? What kind of places they're coming from? What kind of baggages they may bring in with them? What are the cultural setups they come from? And how do we behave? How do we be with them? So it's a host perspective that we try to bring in, because most of the tourism discussions happens from a perspective of guest want this, guest want that, for
Yes.
guests we need. So we talk from a host perspective. As a host, what is your right? What is your commitment? How do you behave with them? And what are your boundaries of that kind of a relationship that you have with the guest? But the guest also understands that there's a boundary of what we ask for. There are homestays, right? We are now opening up homestays everywhere. And homestays, who maintains it? Primarily women maintain the homestays. They're the ones who are serving you food. They're the ones who are showing you the place. They're the ones who is giving you that experience of the homestay. And the homestay, we work with the homestays very, very intricately, because today it was my home, and yesterday this was my home, and today my home is a homestay. I have given two of my rooms as a homestay facility. And it's very, very important for the guest and the host to understand the boundaries of that homestay relationship as well, and to see where my boundary really ends. Because as Indians, for us, home is an open home. When a guest comes, we say it's open home. You can come and see everything. But yes, you can. but it does have a boundary as well. Yeah. And what are those boundaries of your engagement? Another very important thing that we work with. So while doing all this, what we found is that the women's role, and women have brought in very innovative ways of dealing with guests, innovative ways of talking to them, communicating cultures, communicating what is do's and don'ts, communicating, and we see that today there's a boom in women entrepreneurship in India in the tourism sector. Maybe a small scale, but there are many women entrepreneurs. There are boat riders, there are gypsy drivers, there are guides coming up. There are small artisans who have set up their own setups to be part of the local tourism businesses. So what we found is that another important part when we talk about gender inclusive tourism, or we talk about women's empowerment in the tourism sector, which will lead to sustainability, and a very important part of our work is to work with men and boys. Because all this while, they are the ones who are controlling, if I may use this word, the entire tourism market. Today, you have women coming in. So to manage that conflict and to manage it as a smooth transition rather than a threat and risk situation is very important to work with men and boys, to see how men and boys can be partners in this change. So we have a program where we have brought in men guides to train the women guides. And what happened between that? They have become responsible now. They're the mentors. So they have become responsible to also see how they can include these women guides whom they have trained as part of the business cycle. So if they are doing a full day guiding, they divide. They say half a day they will do and half day their trainees will do. So there's an organic relationship between them. We see them, we take them into consideration, we take them in our side to say, you are part of this transition. It is not a conflict. You're part of this transition. And how do you bring this transition smoothly so that it is not a threat situation, but a situation of coexistence and a situation of sharing a space which rightfully belongs to women as well. So that's what I have to really say. I do not have a 25 minutes talk. I would really like to have others to ask me questions so that I can contribute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Joyatri. Yes, we will have more about Q&A section. It will be in the last section of this webinar. So perhaps we will be moving forward for our next speakers. Thank you so much, Joyatri, for sharing such a valuable insight and for joining us in this important conversation. So I couldn't be more agree with you about the kind of policy, and it also can enhance the participation, increase the quota of women there. And also I can see that you also mentioned and how about the gender-based violence that can happen between if there is no policy in that, the absence of the gender mainstreaming itself. So I totally agree with you, because my research, my past research about issuing that why the gender-based violence can occur between women, and also how the context of their power relations, and sometimes the customer satisfaction's role can be like a double sword for women, like that. So yeah, thank you so much, Joyatri. Last but not least, we have Maud Masiyiwa. Maud is joining us from a different time zone, which is EST. So it's extremely early for her. Like I think it's 4 a.m. in her time zone. If I'm not
Yes, that's correct.
sorry, yeah, but yeah, we really appreciate your dedication to be here with us today, Maud. And also,
Wonderful.
yeah, and also for the operator, could you please share your screen so we can read her bio? Okay, great. So Maud Masiyiwa is a seasoned social entrepreneur focused on women's empowerment and sustainable tourism. She holds a master's in responsible tourism management from the Leeds University, has significant experiences in travel, tourism, and community development. After establishing one of the few Black female-owned travel agencies in Johannesburg, she played a role in South Africa's tourism sector, including supporting small businesses during the 2010 FIFA World Cup. Oh my God, amazing. And her company, Capstone Training and Development, organized the first SADC dialogue on women empowerment in tourism. Also recently, Maud shifted focus to the climate resilience in tourism, and it is now the global chapter coordinator for climate-friendly travel under SunX Malta. So yeah, Maud has extensive experience in women in tourism, especially in the community development and building climate resilient industry. So thank you so much for joining us. And okay, so I think I will give this presentation, and it's yours now.
Thank you so much, my dear Ta. If I could ask Helena to share the PowerPoint.
Yeah, Helen, could you please share the slides? Okay, hang on. Awesome.
Thank you. It's showing now. Okay. So thank you ever so much for giving me this opportunity to come and speak to everyone about a topic that's very dear to my heart and currently something that we should all be really focusing on a lot, especially seeing where we are in terms of climate change and the negative impacts that it is bringing upon our industry and how it's taking us further away from the great strides that we have made in terms of women empowerment in the tourism industry across the globe. It doesn't matter where we are sitting. This is a catastrophe that affects all of us. I sometimes call it the great equalizer because whether it's the developing world or the developed world, we're all experiencing severe climate change impacts in our countries. I think this webinar has come at a very interesting time because we're less than 5 days away from COP29. And if you recall, issues of women representation within the planning committee for the conference was addressed in January, I think it was this year, where 28 members that were appointed to the committee were actually all male. And you know, when I saw that, I was like, we're in 2024. This is not something we should be dealing with at this stage. I thought we had overcome such issues. So climate change is an area that all women need to be involved in. And I think more especially as well in the tourism industry, because we've got a lot of issues that are linked to climate change and women empowerment. It's a stark reminder as well for us as women to understand, and men, that we need to rally together as an industry to address serious climate change and build stronger resilience. You can move on. So in my introduction today, I'd like to sort of focus on 3 key areas. And these key areas are going to be, of course, raising the awareness of what it is and the role that women are playing in tourism in line with climate change. I'd also like to, just talk about the challenges of what we're faced with. And then lastly, I'd like to just share some practical strategies that we look at from our end as climate-friendly travel. You can please move on. You can move on. So let's start off by looking at those impacts. And I think we as women play a very important role in the tourism industry, whether it's directly within the industry or the different subsectors in the value chain. It offers us, this industry offers us significant potential for economic growth and poverty eradication. Now, empowering women in this sector doesn't just improve their lives, it strengthens communities. It boosts the local economy. and it fosters cultural exchange. Just to name but a few of the, the positive impacts that this industry plays in terms of women empowerment. But today we'd like to talk about the fact that climate change impacts us negatively on what we've achieved as a body within the tourism industry. You can move to the next slide. So let's talk about these areas that where we are actually impacted. So I think first and foremost, let's look at vulnerability to extreme weather. When we're talking about the impact of climate change upon women in the tourism industry and the extreme vulnerability to these weather patterns that we're seeing at the moment, we deal with an industry that relies heavily on natural resources, and these natural resources are being ravaged by severe weather events. It's either a severe heat wave or a flood or a drought or a landslide or hurricane, just to name but a few of those things that are happening. And we find that women in tourism, particularly those in the rural or the coastal areas, are vulnerable to these impacts. They severely disrupt the activity, the tourism activity. They impact the income that these women have been getting. And of course, at the end of the day, it also impacts job stability. For many women, especially those that are dependent on seasonal travel, and I think, some of your destinations are also experience a lot of that. There's a loss, even if there's just a loss of a single season's income, it can be such a setback that just trying to recover from that setback could take 2 seasons to try and recover from it. The other thing that we'd like to speak to you today about I'd like to touch on is that we've also got issues pertaining to economic displacement. Now, when we talk about those kind of things, we're talking about the income that they've been earning, the business that they had put together, or even just starting out in business in the industry, that gets delayed. And sometimes at the end of the day, it doesn't even happen because unfortunately, these women just don't have the means to get back on their feet if this kind of catastrophe happens. We also find that in households, the women who are involved in the tourism industry bear a larger share of the household costs and the family responsibilities. Some have single-headed homes. So this woman is working in the industry and is being able to sustain her family and keep her kids in school. But suddenly, because there's been this impact of a heat wave or a hurricane or a flood, this woman unfortunately is unable to now provide for her family because either she's lost the job or she's now being put on less hours than she originally had. And that, of course, means that now, or else she has to look for a second job in order to augment the loss of an income. Now, it also means that I think my colleague had spoken about it earlier on this relocation. We tend to find that, the great strides that this woman has had perhaps in a hotel, and she was making her way to middle management. When an event like this occurs, she ends up relocating. And relocation is not something, it's got good and bad, like Joyatri said, but especially for a person who's aiming for a higher role and a higher position in that organization, by relocating because of something that has happened in the environment, she's now lost an opportunity to go to the next level. And I think that becomes quite a challenge for all of us, as we're growing in this business. We also find that a lot of women end up having part-time jobs. They become, some of them end up becoming informal, entering the informal sector as well, because things have really become quite difficult. Now, I also tend to find that one of the things that has happened as well is that, when a person is heading for promotion, the chances of them losing that opportunity to be promoted happens because of situations like definitely climate change. You can move to the next slide. The other thing that I'd like to talk about is health risks. There's a lot of health risks that come with climate change and an event that has happened. Some of them are issues pertaining to, issues pertaining to the likes of waterborne diseases, cholera, etc. And women notably are the caregivers. So if something like that happens, naturally that woman is going to have to spend more time away from work trying to take care of family members who are not feeling well, or she herself also is very vulnerable to infection from any, carrying on with all the illnesses that are around. I think that for a long time, we also struggled a lot with, issues pertaining to flu. You get a person who continuously keeps having this cold and keeps coming, trying to come back to work, and of course, in the process, is infecting a lot of other people at work, and that becomes quite a major health risk for the whole business. Now, I'd also like to talk briefly about another challenge is that we have limited access to resources. So over and above the part that we have a challenge in terms of raising funding to start a business in the industry, etc., when we go through a catastrophe aligned to climate change, there are very few portals for them to receive funding. And one of the things that we've also discovered is that in having lost that source of funding that they may have had, that may have come from an income that they were earning, finding out whether banks are giving out loans, et cetera, becomes more, it becomes increased. There's just nowhere for them to know, where can I get help? How do I keep this business open? Where do I find the funding? If there's any funding available for disaster relief, they don't even know where to find that kind of money. And unfortunately, like we always say, the problem that a lot of women face is that we don't own collateral. So the traditional structures are not geared towards supporting us. So if I now have to look for funding to put back a restaurant that got washed away, where am I going to go? Because I've already lost this business. The structure where I thought I could get funding is not, doesn't look favorably upon me because I don't have the collateral. So we already see that they have a double-barreled situation in terms of just where do I start from. And that becomes a great loss in the drive for us empowering women in this industry. So I'd like to step now to solutions and strategies that we find are very critical. First and foremost, education and training is very, very key. It's important for us to make women aware in the industry and communities that climate change is here. It's real. It's not a myth. It's not going to go away by clicking of the finger. It is something that is here. We need to build resilient skills so that people can adapt to what's going on around them and create that awareness, create that ability to build resilient skills. I always try and use agriculture as one of the easiest ways for us to understand some of these resilient skills. Smart agriculture, for instance, what crops are hardy crops would work in a drought season? What is it that you can do in order to grow certain crops that for a fact are not going to be so affected by a lot of rain, and what's the best time to grow these crops? Because even planting seasons have changed. We've tended to find that, the seasons have changed to such an effect that when we're traditionally growing crops, we are now unable to grow them at this particular season. Okay. Adaptation, how do these women adapt to these changes and also create sustainable tourism practices? And I think that allows us to look at, you can actually move to the next slide. So what resources do we have that would help these women in order to build a resilient support structure around them? So it's looking at making sure that they have access. How do we make sure that they get to know where this funding is available? Is it available? Where is it available? How do you apply for it? What are the chances of you getting that money if it does come through? What are the I find is also very, very important right now is technology. And I have always struggled as a person in terms of just adapting to technology. And I think right now is a time where we have no choices. There's no choice. You just have to adapt to learning these skills, understanding how to maneuver through the technology, because it is how we're going to understand what's going on around us, how we can build this resilience to all that's going on. And also, just like I mentioned earlier on, where do I get the funding? If you are able to maneuver through technology, you're able to access and find information pertaining to where the funding is available, where the support is available, even just mental, health support in terms of if this is what is happening in terms of the climate change weather patterns, you can actually get some form of support. The other thing that's very, very important is building supportive networks. And I was listening to my colleagues earlier on about allyship. And we cannot work as women and expect to be empowered without us building and building strong networks amongst ourselves as women, and also with men who are able to support us in issues of empowerment. Let's not shy away from networking. Do not shy away from being able to get that kind of support that's critical in building resilience. Okay, you can move to the next slide. Okay. The other thing I'd also like to talk about very briefly is issues pertaining to policy and advocacy. I had spoken earlier on about just building these strong networks. And I think it's important for women who are in the industry to understand policies that are being created around, climate change, etc. I think for one of us, and in terms of climate-friendly travel, one of the things that we do focus on is understanding the NDCs. Our countries go out there and they sign the nationally determined contributions from each country. And I think as an industry, we play a very important role in understanding if our country has agreed to reduction of emissions by a certain percentage, how do we as an industry understand our contribution, our part of that percentage? What is it that we are going to do in order to achieve what our country has committed to? Okay, you can move to the next slide. We had spoken greatly about the solution, about community support. Our communities are very, very important, whether they are structures that are built within the business itself, whether it is outside the business, an association already like we have with the Women in Tourism in Indonesia is already part of that community support. And this is one area where we know for a fact that we are going to be able to build that resilience that we're looking for. You can move on. Thanks, Helena. And sustainable tourism practice is a very important part of building resilience to climate change and protecting our vulnerable communities. And I think it's also a great opportunity for us as well to be able to share best models. Through our chapters in climate-friendly travel, we have a lot of least developed countries within our network, within our community, and we have small islands as well. And we find that there's different things that are being shared about simple things that are done in order to build resilience. And those are the kind of things that I think are important for us as an industry and for women empowerment to start gearing ourselves into and tapping into, because something that may have worked in island A could definitely, if we tweak it, could definitely work on island B. And that kind of thing happens a lot, and sharing is very important because this thing will not just go on its own. You can move on. All right. And I think given the time frames that I'm working with right now, I'd like to just end with a very nice little clip that comes out of an initiative that was brought together by Equality in Tourism, which is running in Tanzania. And I'm sure all of us are aware that Tanzania is a very popular tourism destination, especially because of the wildlife and the mountain. And this particular project that they started focuses on how we can empower women who are in the value chain so that they can create and build resilience towards climate change through agriculture and the supply to the tourism industry. So I'd like to part, with this particular clip. Please go ahead.
Hello, Karibu Tanzania, and welcome to Kilimanjaro. I am Grace, and I'm the Cooperative Manager of Fomboma Cooperative Society. Through the farmers from the most poorest villages in Kilimanjaro, through this groundbreaking and life-changing project, which was initiated by Equality in these women farmers by connecting them to a whole new tourism market, hotels and restaurants here in Kilimanjaro, enough to raise funds through crowdfunding, which supported the purchase of farm inputs such as seeds, manure, pesticides, produce quality farm products at a required quantity. These women can now earn incomes that allow them to have savings. To mention but a few, we have Manais Munishi, who has quadrupled her income in a period of 2 years.
Kupitia mradi huu nimeweza kuongeza kipato changu kwenye kaya yangu na kusomesha mtoto wangu chuo kikuu.
Furthermore, most of these women have managed to achieve the food security goal in their households by cultivating enough produce to sell and feed their families. Unfortunately, though, the project is now in crisis because of the impacts of climate change. The drastic climate change has led to occurrence of flashy floods, which have washed away crops and ruined the topsoil, while long sunny seasons have led to severe droughts in the farm fields. We therefore need to raise enough funds in order to support these women's efforts in alleviating poverty and attaining food security. If we can get big greenhouse farms, water tanks, drip irrigation systems, underground wells, along with the water pumps, we can help these women protect their crops from heavy rainfalls and long droughts. We will very much value your support and help to secure this amazing project that is one of a kind in the world. Thank you very much from every one of us. Asante.
Thank you very much. I'd like to just point out that they now have the greenhouses and they've got drip irrigation, and they have been able to recover some of the contracts that they had lost during the pandemic, which with some of those hotels and lodges. And some of these women are actually looking at building new businesses within the tourism industry by taking on, building homestays, and they've also now got a cultural center. So we can already see that amazing empowerment that has happened through our industry, and how they've built resilience as well. So thank you ever so much. Hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Maud, for your powerful, insightful presentations, along with the amazing video that you presented, and also for your commitment, not to forget about the intersectionality on the climate change. So also, I would like to invite our previous speakers, Dr. Prachi, Joyatri, and Maud, for their contribution, and to all participants that for the engaging questions. So before we go to Q&A, because after this, Dr. Prachi will have another meeting and won't be able to stand any longer here. So we need to capture this moment with a group photo. So anyone or people can that is here, so you can also turn on your cameras, so we can take a picture together. Okay, so I will be a photographer today, and also the operator, please also take the screenshot so we can also include all of the audiences here. So I will count 1, 2, 3, smile. All right. Okay, so perhaps the pages, all of the pages. Yeah, cool. 1, 2, 3. Okay, all right. Okay, I think one more. Yeah. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you very much. I think we already wrap all of the captures today. Thank you so much, Dr. Prachi Thakur, for being here with us.
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, Joyatri. It's so nice to see you. Hi, Maud. It's nice to see you. And thank you so much, everyone, for having me. I need to rush to other meeting. I have noted down your questions, and I'll try to reply to them to Monica via email. Thank you so much again for having me.
Okay, yeah. So for those who already sent the questions for Dr. Prachi, so we will be emailing the answers along with your emails and also perhaps on the WhatsApp group community. So yeah, thank you so much for Maud and Joyatri for being here until the Q&A end. So I'd like to pick some of the questions here. We already have a few more. So for those who would like to submit the questions, so please just submit the questions here that we have mentioned before, include name and the institution and to whom the question for. Also, for the first question, it will be from Francinaga to to Joyatri Ray about in Samosir, women contribute to the local economy by making traditional ulos, textiles, and crafts, but still earn little from tourism. Despite government training and SME involvement, what obstacles might be limiting their income and what strategies, similar to successful approaches in India, could help improve their economic outcomes? So perhaps Dr. Joyatri can answer this question. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Monica, and thank you for the question. I'm no doctor, first of all, so thank you for that, but I am not. Yeah, so the way we look at tourism and the way we were doing it is that tourism is a seasonal activity, and it also has lots of ups and downs. So when we are looking at empowering women to tourism, tourism becomes a secondary option. It's a linkage between what they're traditionally practicing already, what they traditionally are doing, and linking up tourism as one component of it. So it is not that their entire livelihood is dependent on tourism earnings. That's the first thing that we have looked at. The tourism is seasonal. Tourism is also extremely fragile. Something happens somewhere else, we will not have tourists. Something happens to our country, we will not have tourists. So it's really not we don't see it as a primary occupation, a primary livelihood option. So is there some other question coming up? Okay.
Yes, already.
So, okay. So the whole idea is that when we looked at tourism, when we looked at this whole occupation, as I said earlier, there are different job roles. And it is not about balancing. It is about the space belongs to both of them. How are we reclaiming the space? Guiding is, for example, is till now a man-dominated avenue, but doesn't mean that women cannot. So by training women into guiding, there is a scheme that has come up with the central government where they're also subsidizing these training programs. They're also having right now there is also a thing that where the women have to be part of the guiding roles. So there are being provisions made by the policy and the laws, which is also giving this whole understanding that women have to be part of the tourism supply chain. So that's a positive trend in our country where we have specific policies which says the women has to be integrated into the tourism supply chain. That gives us one of the questions that I see right now coming from Fabrins is saying that how can we empower women when the demand for the female roles isn't yet balanced with job opportunities? It's not about it will never be balanced. we have to make it balanced, no? We have to make it balanced. It is nobody else's job to make it balanced. Job is a job. It does not have a gender nature. We made it gendered. We said it is men who will do. We said it is women who will do. So we have to bring that balance in now. It is a call that we have to take. So I don't see that. So we are trying to make that balance correct now. We're saying there is a balance already given by the nature. It is not, it is any job role of guiding. It was never said it was only men. Why did it become men? Because it was a market job. It was giving us money. It was a visible job. See, it's a very simple example I always like to give. I cook at home, no issues. Maybe my husband will not cook at home, but a chef is a man. How many women chefs do you have in the world right now? It's still a percentage that we could think about. So it's a market. It is money. It is the visibility, which brought in this gendered view of a role, which is man or a woman. It has nothing to do with balance. So I think the balance has to strike right by having more and more women into the spaces with the right set of skills to share that. It is time to share. It's time to understand the spaces for co-sharing. To the other one, to the obstacles, the main obstacle that we faced was resources. I think Maud has already spoken about it as well at length, the resources, the access to finance, access to control over natural resource, land, even the homestay. Maybe we get the homestay subsidy, but whose name is the homestay really? Who is really controlling it? Who is managing it? Who is marketing it? Who is taking the money and actually trying to see how do we spend that money? So the question is really that, and that's the obstacle that we are facing. We need more investments in women empowerment. We need more investments in women entrepreneurship. We need the financiers to understand women has, and the researchers shows that women are much better pay, they repay loan much better. There are enough studies on that worldwide, but still we don't get enough resources. Still, we don't get those money. That's the biggest struggle. And the second struggle was definitely how to create this space, how to create a non-threatening space which does not have conflict, but we try and bridge the gap between men and women, because the space is this much in a tourism. This is the only space, and they're sharing that same space. How do we bring in that space? How do we make that space is shared between the two and without a conflict situation? These are what the two main obstacles, and we try to sort out. First one is access to resources is not been sorted out yet. We are still looking for funds. We're still looking to see who can support them. Second one is partially sorted out because we have brought in men into this whole program. It is a shared program, and so they come up with solutions where women can actually share space, where it is actually not so safe for women. How can they make it safe? There are also discussions, how can they make there's one particular tourism destination where a guide association said that this space is not safe for women at all. But we will make it safe by putting lights over there, by actually making sure that we have small stalls set up. So we will ensure that when women guide goes there, there are also another group of, there's an ecosystem of care and protection in some sense. So that men, women, travelers, women, whoever goes there feel safe. It is not a dark spot. So those kind of initiatives. Yeah. I hope I've answered partially your questions.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Joyatri, for that. And thank you for Moderator Monica and Dr. Joyatri. So I can say that Joyatri is not
I'm not a doctor.
Not a doctor, so so you're very welcome, Francinago. Thank you for submitting the questions. And also, moving forward, there's one more question for Maud. I think it is from Maribeth from UGM. Given that climate change is a relatively new focus in Indonesia, especially in tourism, what are some effective strategies for internalizing climate change discussions in this context? And how can we integrate this conversation into everyday tourism planning and operation in a way that resonates with both local communities and travelers, especially considering Indonesia is unique environmental and cultural landscape? Thank you. Perhaps Maud, could you please answer this now?
Yes, most certainly. I think I'm going to break it down. I'm going to take it in small bits. So I think first and foremost, awareness, whether we like it or not, it's got to be there. And I think over and above creating awareness about climate change, its impact, and building that resilience. And what are the resilience skills that we're going to apply? I think that is important. Whether you're doing it in your own business or whether you're doing it in your workplace, it already empowers you. I always use a very interesting analog, sort of theme line where I say it starts in the home. How are we sorting out our own waste? How do we sort out food waste? How do we sort out plastic? Why am I still using plastic? And that it's part of changing a mindset. Create the mindset from your own home so that when you even go into the workplace, you're able to turn what you've been doing at home into the workplace as well. I went to one place I think it's about a year ago, and I walked into this hotel and they gave out water bottles. And I always wonder why at events we still are using water bottles. Because one of the most important things is we're trying to do away with plastic. And these plastic bottles actually always, 90% of the time, end up in our water system or on our streets, and they pollute, and then they're really not doing us any good. So I'm standing there and I'm speaking to the person at reception and I'm asking for a bin to put the plastic. And this guy did not understand what I was talking about. And he said to me, no, just throw it in there. And I thought, this is actually a 4-star establishment. I shouldn't even have to start looking for a bin for recyclables. I shouldn't have to ask for it. And he was actually astounded at why I kept insisting that it's okay, I will take my bottle back. I'll take it with me when I leave this place, and I'll find a place when I get home. So those are critical issues about creating that awareness. Our little behaviors have got great impact.
Okay.
We need to start changing our minds about our practices and the things that we thought were normal, these things that we need to start changing, so that we can create a better tourism destination and a better world. We need to leave this planet well. We need to leave this as a healthy planet. And that only can happen if we all work together. I think the second part of the question, Monica, was, what did they ask again? Sorry.
Okay, so it's about how can we integrate this conversation into everyday tourism planning and operations? Yeah. With communities.
And I think on average, I strongly believe that almost every single local structure, whether it is a local municipality or a local council or a community, they have certain policies or certain conversations around climate change. And I think there's opportunities for us to engage with them, not leave them out of this conversation. If we are building something as an association around climate change, and it could include us, and we could come back to them and say, you've left us out. How did you leave us out? Very interesting. Well, like I mentioned at the very beginning, was we were planning COP29 in January at the destination. And we suddenly walk into this room and there's 28 people and we do not see ourselves represented there. Now, why? Why do we have to get to that point for somebody to turn around, for an organization that's a global organization that's focusing on climate change and women empowerment to ask, why do we have 28 men sitting in this room in the year 2024? How many COPs have we gone to? So I think it's important for us to be able to work within the structures that we see that are around us, whether it's a community, whether it's a co-op, whether it's an association, that network, that building of that structure, and saying to ourselves, we need our voices to be heard.
Yeah.
And we're not rallying with great big billboards or something of the sort. We're just asking very relevant questions. Hello, why are we at 2024 and we don't have women in this particular role? So I think that's important for us to do it. And even in our own businesses, like I mentioned earlier on, if you're a woman and you know that these are things that are impacting all of us, when you're in a position where you actually turn around and say, I see that there's a problem, I'm going to ask, why haven't we done this? You know, we're no longer just, if we're in the industry, we're no longer just employees. Let's become entrepreneurial. Let's become people who create solutions. Look at innovative solutions. And the beauty about the world we're living in right now, we've got a lot of young people who are very innovative. Let's give them a chance to speak. Let's give them that chance because they're, you know, they've got so much to offer. And let's not shut them down. These young people, computer savvy, they're on apps 90% of the time. Let's allow them to use those apps for a good reason.
Yeah.
And for that reason, you know, I feel that we've got to be able to, let's get to a point where we're actually in talking to each other and talking about solutions. Let's find solutions together and not in silos.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay.
Thank you. I think I've answered everything. Was there anything I left out?
No. Okay, thank you so much. Also, I couldn't be more agree with you about this kind of things. Like we need to also include the groups in the discussion like this for this from the small things because but I can see that sometimes in this kind of high level discussion there is no inclusivity there. It's all about political context, and there is no even marginalized group. And I recall there is one question for both of you, Maud and also Joyatri. And the first one is for Maud. From Priska, I don't know Priska from where, but what are some effective approaches to building climate resilience in the tourism industry while also addressing gender equality and safeguarding marginalized groups? And the second one, it is for Joyatri. Drawing from your work in public policy and gender mainstreaming, what frameworks or best practices could help tourism sectors in emerging markets integrate both climate resilience and gender equality into their policies? So perhaps like this one is about the kind of climate resilience and safeguarding. So perhaps Maud, you can be this expertise, and the second one for Joyatri is about like a policy. So I think I would like to invite Joyatri first, perhaps to answer the question.
You sure?
Okay, I'll try to answer this. I think that in terms of framework, first of all, I think it needed to have a gender vulnerability assessments with a gender lens, you know, to assess the impact of climate change on different genders, you know, particularly in tourism department communities. And develop targeted resilience measures. So it's very important that it actually the tourism industry comes up with gender sensitive climate action plans. You know, I think which Maud has spoken at length on that, and which something that I don't see is happening in India till now, though India is facing climate change in a very, very in an extensive manner. Second thing is gender responsive budgeting to ensure that the tourism budgets reflect gender sensitive, you know, gender inclusive investments, including equal access to resources and economic opportunities for women in tourism businesses, while also considering needs of the climate adaptation and mitigation. I also think that there has to be collaboration with, you know, with gender responsive businesses. So the tourism industry can look at foster partnerships with business that prioritize gender equity, sustainability, ensuring that the tourism development supports the, you know, the tourism climate resilient infrastructure. You know, the irony is that, you know, it's like I was in a conference very recently, actually not so last year. And we were talking about climate change, and one of the just after one speaker speaking about climate change, talking about how it's actually devastating and what's happening. Other person comes in and says that this time on 25th of December, we are launching a cruise in Iceland. And I'm saying, wow, like, climate change, devastating, and we are launching a cruise in Iceland. So I sometimes feel that there's an irony, that how we are looking at climate change in the tourism sector, and how there are efforts. It's not that there are no effort, there are efforts. But is it enough? Is a question to ask. And are we really looking at those from the all kind of sincerity, or it's a mixed kind of a response now we are getting, where we are saying climate change, but also trying to say, no, it's okay, it's happening, but we should also keep doing things which are more marketable, which brings in profit and things like that. So I think it's very important, if you're looking at gender and we're looking at gender inclusive climate action plans, it needs to start with assessment. It needs to start with also, women's safety audits, looking at the kind of infrastructures that we're building, kinds of, resources we are actually putting in place, what kind of tourism planning that we're doing, and who are part of those planning processes. Are women part of it or not?
Yes.
At what level? Even in the level of villages, gram panchayat level, in our case, which is at the local governance level, they have the rights, they have the power to develop tourism planning. Do we have women over there? And if we have women, are we actually bringing in women from different categories, different walks of life, or it's a particular group of women who are participating? So I think there are loads of these layered understanding that we have to bring into the planning process, which first and foremost, can women be part of just fully and rightfully in all those decision-making places where we are planning, where we are designing, where we are putting in budget, to a plan which is going to be implemented in the place where we live. Tourism comes in a place where we are living.
Yeah.
So it's an equal right of each of those host community women to, as much as it's a right of a tourist to come and experience it. So if you can make that living space better, it will be better for everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly. I can definitely 100% relate with that. So any tourism plan, any policy won't be able to achieve that if we cannot even include the grassroots or the local people in there. So like Joyatri already said, that tourism comes from within all that places. So we won't be able to left them behind, because they are all the key stakeholders that need to be there for the tourism planning and also for the policy as well. So thank you so much, Joyatri. And for Maud, could you please answer the question from Priska?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And I think, some of the things that always come to mind initially when I'm asked about something like that is I always say that education. Our curriculums in our institutions have got to evolve. There's a lot of the stuff that we're still dishing out in terms of education in the high schools, in junior schools, and in higher institutions of learning that are a bit outdated. And I'm sorry I'm picking this here at this stage, at this forum, but I tend to find that it's stuff that was fine then, but the world has evolved. We're now sitting with something that we were talking about what, 20 years ago? We talked about it and we all thought it wouldn't touch us, but we're now living it. Now it's here. And I think our curriculum has got to adapt to what's going on. Where are we putting climate change, the changes that are happening? How can we put that into our curriculum and make people understand that we have a chance to make a change? We've got a chance to reduce emissions. And I believe, hearing everybody today, I can see that it is something that, the industry is looking at, education is looking at, and finding a way to change that is important. So first and foremost, one of the greatest approaches is to relook our curriculum and find ways of putting these kind of things back into the curriculum, because they didn't exist 10 years ago. They didn't exist 20 years ago. They exist right now. And we need young people who are coming behind, or people who are being educated about what's going on. Let them get to hear about it at that level. There are things that they need to know about. The things like I spoke about UNFCCC. Who are they? What do they do? Let's be informed and educated about these things. The other thing that I find very interesting, and I believe is a great approach, is, are we building green skills? Are we skilling people for those green jobs? I live in Toronto right now, and every other second day I hear about green skills. I go back to Africa and it's still what is a green skill? What are you talking about? So I believe strongly that it is time we started looking at the jobs, the traditional jobs we've had in the industry. How can they become greener? How can we green that job? A gardener at a hotel is not a gardener. He is a landscape architect. Now, how do we make sure that that landscape architect is actually fulfilling the green gap that we have? How do we make sure that he's doing the right thing? You still go to a place and we're living in a drought. We don't have water, and the plants that are being planted around in the garden are plants that are going to require a lot of water. Do we have sufficient water to water them? We don't. But unfortunately, the gardener who's out there, or the landscaper, doesn't know that he has got to be very conservative with the water source that we have. So it's just, well, how do we tweak and put those things into place so that we build a very strong tourism industry that's building adaptation and resilience in the times of climate change? I also think that mentorship and coaching, important all the time. We lose good people in the industry who either leave the industry because they're so disillusioned, and that ability, that enthusiasm, that skill base that they had, the experiences that they had, leave the industry. We can't capture them. We now have to start looking at building another person to fulfill what this person brought into our industry. And I think it's important for us to start seriously, as women in the tourism industry, focusing on mentorship and coaching. It is an important part of this big industry that we belong to. One of the other things is localizing training. Let's use local language. Let's use easy words. Let's use things that make it so much easier for people to understand. And indirectly, we will have taught them about what's going on around them. I can't stand here and go into a co-op in a rural area and start talking about great big, I'll lose them completely. And once I've lost them, they will not give me a second chance. So I need to be able to walk in there, speak in their language, dress the way they would want me to dress, like the women, and say, guys, do you realize that this is what's happening? Let's go to the river. This is where you get your source of water. You carry a pail of water every day from this river. But do you realize that this water is not clean? And what can you, as people who are dependent, and your homes are dependent on this water source, what can you do to change this? Let's go and clean up the river. Let's clean the riverbank. And gradually you start telling them, do you realize that the more you keep flooding this river source with plastics, with rubbish, et cetera, is detrimental to your life? And of course, I mean, especially for homestays that are in the rural communities, et cetera, those women then begin to understand, okay, this is what's going on. And the next time I see us having no water and the rains haven't come, I am also part and parcel to blame for what has happened. So I think, that's sort of, and I think my last words in parting words is, let's be sisters keepers.
Sister keepers.
You know, we always hear brothers keeper.
Yeah.
Let's be sisters keepers. I don't mind to being up at this hour, because as far as I'm concerned, what concerns me concerns Asia. What concerns me concerns my friends in America today, who are shedding tears over whatever it is that's going on. So we always have to be sisters keepers, and that's my serious parting word, is that as sisters keepers, we'll be able to make this a very strong, resilient industry for all of us and for the people coming behind us.
All right. Thank you so much, Maud, for your insightful answers about all of this. Like one of the key ones, it's about how education really worked for us, including this into inclusive curriculum about climate change and anything that. Yeah, I can agree with that. Like, because for example, in the tourism sector in Indonesia, in the institutional ones and also the education sectors, we found that from our research, only 1.3% that integrate gender curriculum in that tourism sector. So sometimes, like, why this happen and why tourism can be normalized for sexual violence, and also why it's not really kind for women out there, and including how climate change also works on that on the regional level. It's because of that sometimes. So yeah, localize the educational and training also is one of the important sectors. Okay, thank you for all the esteemed speakers for joining with us. Joyatri and Maud, we are really, really grateful and appreciate your time to be here and the amazing commitment for all of your great works. And yeah, thank you so much, and also for the audiences for staying with us. I think time is already up, and with that, I will hand it back over to our MC, Nada. Thank you again, everyone, for being part of this event.
All right, then thank you, Miss Monica, for being our moderator for this event. And also thank you so much for all the wonderful speakers today who already shared the knowledge and experience that really helpful and insightful for us. Okay, so after we've heard the presentation from our speakers today, now it's the moment that we've been waiting for us to know a lucky winner who asked the best question. Okay, so for the lucky winner, I will announce. So congratulations, Franz Sinaga from Christian University of Indonesia and Francesca Aurelia Oenang from UGM. For the winner, please contact us via WhatsApp. Okay, so because I've already announced the winner of this event, it indicates that the event has ended. Once again, thank you for our speakers today. It's been an honor to have you with us today, and we truly appreciate your time and dedication for giving the presentation at this event. So let's show our gratitude with a round of applause to our speakers. Okay, besides, we would like to give a special thank you to our media partner such as Feminist Event, Telusuri, Travelcism, and Webbar. We deeply appreciate your partnership and commitment to make this event a success. And also thank you so much to all of our amazing participants. We hope you enjoyed the session, learned something new, and feel inspired. Let's give yourselves a well-deserved round of applause for making this event so impactful. As we close, I would like to invite our speakers and all the participants to take a photo session. And now you may turn on your camera so we can take a photo.
Okay, Thank you so much. 1, 2, 3. All right. On the second page, 1, 2, 3. All right. Beautiful. Thank you so much, Amanda. Thank you for.
Okay, thank you, Miss Monica, for taking the picture. Okay, so once again, thank you for your time and energy, and also for being part of this event with us. We look forward to seeing you at our future events. Until then, stay healthy and happy. God bless you and see you. Bye for now.
Thank you, Joyatri. Thank you, Maud. Have
Thanks
a
a lot. Hey.
week.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you.